Most people think that as we get older, the key to staying healthy is to add more things to our routine. More pills, more supplements, more protective measures. We see the ads, we hear the advice from friends, and we fill our medicine cabinets with bottles, each one a promise of vitality, a shield against the inevitable march of time. But what if I told you that for men over 50, the path to genuine, lasting health isn't about adding more, but about wisely taking things away? What if the very things you believe are protecting you are, at best, wasting your hard-earned money and, at worst, actively causing you harm? It sounds counterintuitive, I know. It goes against a lifetime of conditioning from a wellness industry that profits from our anxieties. But the truth is, our bodies at 60, 70, or 80 are not the same as they were at 30. The biochemical rulebook changes, and our strategies must change with it. It's something more and more forward-thinking doctors, geriatric specialists, and researchers are beginning to acknowledge with urgency. The supplement industry, a multi-billion-dollar behemoth, is waking up to a new reality, even if its marketing department hasn't gotten the memo. The one-size-fits-all approach, the idea that a supplement that's good for a 25-year-old athlete is also good for a 75-year-old retiree, is not just flawed, it's dangerous. We're beginning to understand, with sobering clarity, how things that may have once helped, or were thought to help, can later harm. In this video, we're going to take an honest, evidence-based look at 6 specific supplements that are aggressively marketed to senior men, but which I, as a men's health doctor, would strongly advise my own family and patients to avoid. These aren't obscure chemicals. They are some of the most popular and trusted names on the shelf. We'll explore why these supplements are so commonly recommended. We'll dive into the science that reveals the hidden dangers they carry for an aging body. And most importantly, we'll discuss the better, safer, and often free alternatives that truly support your health. This isn't about scaring you. It's about empowering you. You've earned the wisdom that comes with age, and you deserve a healthcare approach that honors that wisdom, that respects your body's unique needs at this stage of life. You deserve better than wasting money on false hope. Let's begin. The first supplement we need to talk about is one of the most famous, a true celebrity of the vitamin world. We'll call this one number 1, the antioxidant betrayal. I'm talking about high-dose vitamin E. For decades, it was hailed as a miracle worker. The logic seemed absolutely airtight. Our bodies are under constant assault from oxidative stress, a process where unstable molecules called free radicals damage our cells, contributing to aging and disease. Vitamin E is a powerful antioxidant, a molecular hero that neutralizes these free radicals. So, the thinking went, if a little is good, a lot must be better. Taking a high-dose capsule every day seemed like the smartest insurance policy a man could buy for his heart, his brain, and his overall longevity. It was a simple, compelling story. But here's where the story takes a dark turn, where something that seems so helpful can become harmful. The body's antioxidant system is a finely tuned orchestra, not a heavy metal concert. It relies on a delicate balance of many different players. When you flood your system with massive doses of just one type of vitamin E, usually alpha-tocopherol, the kind found in most supplements, you create a profound imbalance. It's like sending in an army of trumpeters and telling the rest of the orchestra to go home. This flood of alpha-tocopherol can actually crowd out and deplete other crucial forms of vitamin E, like gamma-tocopherol, which has its own unique and vital protective functions, particularly against certain types of free radicals. But the danger goes even deeper. Under certain biological conditions, instead of acting as a protector, this overwhelming dose of vitamin E can flip its role and become a pro-oxidant, actually increasing the very cellular damage it was meant to prevent. This isn't just a theory. It's a conclusion supported by major, large-scale human trials. The most damning of these was the SELECT trial, the Selenium and Vitamin E Cancer Prevention Trial. It was a massive study, involving over 35,000 men, designed to see if vitamin E and selenium could prevent prostate cancer. The results were not just disappointing, they were shocking. The men taking high-dose vitamin E didn't have less prostate cancer. They had a statistically significant 17% increase in the risk of developing it. The study was stopped early because the supplement was actively causing harm. And it's not just cancer risk. A landmark meta-analysis from Johns Hopkins University, which pooled the results of 19 different clinical trials, found that high-dose vitamin E supplementation, doses of 400 IU per day or more, was associated with a small but real increase in all-cause mortality. In plain English, it was linked to a higher risk of dying from any cause. The very pill people were taking to live longer was, for some, potentially shortening their lives. The risk might be small for any one individual, but when you multiply it across millions of users, it becomes a serious public health concern. Let me tell you about a patient of mine. Let's call him Robert. Robert, a 65-year-old retired civil engineer, was a man who lived by logic and precision. He was meticulous about his health, priding himself on his daily walks, his low-sodium diet, and the organized pill case on his kitchen counter. He was in excellent health for his age, with well-controlled blood pressure and a sharp mind. One day, after reading a glossy article in a men's health magazine praising vitamin E for age-proofing the body, he decided to add a 400 IU capsule to his daily regimen. It felt like a smart, proactive step, an engineer's solution to the problem of aging. For the first year, he didn't notice much of a difference, but he felt good knowing he was doing something extra. Then, during his annual physical, his doctor noted a slight but steady uptick in his PSA levels, the marker for prostate health. It wasn't in the danger zone yet, but the trend was concerning. This triggered a cascade of anxiety for Robert, more frequent blood tests, discussions about biopsies, and sleepless nights spent worrying. It was during a follow-up that I asked him about his supplements. When he mentioned the high-dose vitamin E, a red flag went up. I explained the findings of the SELECT trial to him, the very study designed to test the belief he had bought into. He was stunned. He stopped the supplement immediately. Over the next 18 months, his PSA levels stabilized and even trended down slightly, easing his anxiety and halting the talk of more invasive procedures. Today, Robert is still in good health, but he carries a sense of regret, not just for the money he wasted, but for the months of profound worry he and his wife endured, all because of a pill he thought was the pinnacle of responsible self-care. This isn't just my opinion or Robert's story. The consensus in the medical community has made a 180-degree turn. Leading organizations like the American Heart Association and the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force now explicitly recommend against routine high-dose vitamin E supplementation for the prevention of cardiovascular disease or cancer. The protocols have changed because the evidence is undeniable. The old thinking was based on test tube studies and flawed assumptions. The new, evolved understanding is based on what happens in real human bodies over many years. For older men, particularly, the risk-benefit calculation is no longer in favor of these high-dose pills. So what does this teach us? It's a powerful lesson in humility. The wisdom here isn't in neglecting antioxidants. It's in seeking them from the source nature intended. True protection doesn't come from an isolated, high-potency chemical in a gel cap. It comes from the complex, synergistic symphony of nutrients found in whole foods. A handful of almonds, a serving of spinach, a spoonful of sunflower seeds. These provide vitamin E in its natural, balanced forms, complete with the other compounds your body needs to use it safely and effectively. Reaching for an apple instead of a pill isn't a sign of neglect. It's a sign of profound understanding. It's about choosing the wisdom of the garden over the hubris of the lab. This is your first step in reclaiming your health, trading the antioxidant betrayal for the simple, powerful truth of real food. Now, let's move on to our second supplement, a name you've undoubtedly seen advertised alongside images of sharp, focused seniors enjoying their golden years. This is number 2, the memory myth. I'm talking about ginkgo biloba. The appeal is incredibly powerful because it targets one of our deepest fears, the fear of losing our minds, our memories, our very identity. The marketing is brilliant. It's an ancient herb, used for centuries in traditional medicine, suggesting a kind of timeless, natural wisdom. It's sold with the promise of boosting mental clarity, sharpening focus, and, most seductively, preventing the devastating cognitive decline that can lead to dementia and Alzheimer's disease. The logic seems plausible enough. Ginkgo is believed to work by improving blood flow, particularly to the small vessels in the brain, and by acting as an antioxidant. For a man who feels his recall isn't what it used to be, or who has watched a loved one struggle with memory loss, a bottle of ginkgo can feel like a lifeline, a tangible way to fight back. It's an understandable, deeply human impulse to want to protect the one organ that holds everything we are. But here, the cold, hard light of rigorous science shines on the marketing claims and finds them wanting. For years, the evidence for ginkgo was based on small, poorly designed studies or anecdotal reports. But then came the definitive trial, a true titan of clinical research called the Ginkgo Evaluation of Memory (GM) study. This wasn't a small-time operation. It was sponsored by the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, NCCIH, part of the U.S. National Institutes of Health. It enrolled over 3,000 adults, aged 75 and older, and followed them for an average of 6 years. Half took a standard dose of ginkgo biloba twice a day, and the other half took an identical-looking placebo. The researchers tracked them meticulously, conducting regular, comprehensive tests of memory, attention, and other cognitive functions. The results, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, were a stunning blow to the ginkgo industry. The conclusion was crystal clear. Ginkgo biloba was no more effective than the placebo at reducing the incidence of dementia or Alzheimer's disease. It did not slow the rate of cognitive decline, nor did it improve memory or any other mental faculty. It simply did not work. And it's not just ineffective, it can carry significant risks, especially for older adults. One of the known effects of ginkgo is that it can interfere with blood clotting, acting as a mild blood thinner. Now, think about the typical man in his 60s or 70s. What medications is he often on? Many are on a daily low-dose aspirin for heart health or more potent anticoagulants like warfarin or newer agents for conditions like atrial fibrillation. Combining ginkgo with these medications can be a recipe for disaster, dramatically increasing the risk of serious bleeding events, from gastrointestinal bleeds to, in rare cases, hemorrhagic strokes. Even for someone not on blood thinners, this effect can be dangerous. An accidental fall or a minor surgery can become a major medical event if your blood doesn't clot properly. Furthermore, ginkgo can interact with a whole host of other common medications, including certain antidepressants, blood pressure medications, and diabetes drugs, altering their effectiveness in unpredictable ways. This is a classic example of a supplement that offers no proven upside, but a very real potential downside. I remember a gentleman named David, a 72-year-old retired history professor who had built his entire identity around his formidable intellect. David was sharp, witty, and terrified of the senior moments he was starting to experience. His baseline was still excellent. He could debate Napoleonic history with the best of them. But the fear of cognitive decline, a fear amplified by his mother's journey with Alzheimer's, led him straight to the health food store. He started taking a premium brand of ginkgo biloba, viewing it as a scholarly, proactive investment in his most valuable asset, his brain. He spent hundreds of dollars a year on it, convinced it was keeping him sharp. His wife, privately, would tell me she saw absolutely no difference. The inciting incident came not in his mind, but on his front steps. He tripped on a loose paving stone, a simple fall that resulted in a nasty gash on his shin. But the wound just wouldn't stop bleeding. It bled far more profusely and for far longer than it should have. In the urgent care clinic, the doctor, piecing together his history, asked about supplements. When David mentioned the ginkgo, the doctor immediately identified the likely culprit. The herb's blood-thinning effect was potentiating the low-dose aspirin he took for his heart. David was lucky it was just a cut on his leg and not an internal bleed. The experience was a wake-up call. He is still the same sharp man today, but he carries a deep regret for his gullibility and the risk he unknowingly exposed himself to. The official stance from authoritative bodies confirms this. The National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, NCCIH, the very body that funded the GM study, states plainly on its website that there is no conclusive evidence that ginkgo is helpful for any health condition. The American Academy of Neurology's clinical practice guidelines for mild cognitive impairment specifically state that ginkgo biloba is not effective and should not be recommended. The medical world has moved on, even if the supplement ads haven't. So what's the empowering takeaway here? It's that true cognitive health is an active process, not a passive pill. You cannot supplement your way to a sharp mind. The real, evidence-based supplements for your brain are things that don't come in a bottle. They are learning a new language or musical instrument, which builds new neural pathways. It's engaging in regular, brisk exercise, which improves blood flow to the brain far more effectively and safely than any herb. It's maintaining strong social connections, which has been shown to be one of the most powerful protectors against cognitive decline. Choosing to join a book club instead of buying a bottle of ginkgo, or committing to a daily walk with a friend instead of swallowing a capsule, is an act of genuine self-care. It's about investing your time and energy in strategies that are proven to work, reclaiming your power from the myth makers, and placing it back where it belongs, in your own hands and in your daily life. Let's transition to a topic that is front of mind for so many men as they age: prostate health. This brings us to our third supplement, a product so ubiquitous in men's health sections it feels like an official part of the aging process. This is number 3, the prostate panacea that wasn't. I am, of course, talking about saw palmetto. The logic behind its popularity is undeniable. As men get older, the prostate gland naturally enlarges, a condition called benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. This enlargement can squeeze the urethra, leading to a host of frustrating and quality-of-life diminishing urinary symptoms: a weak stream, difficulty starting, a feeling of not fully emptying the bladder, and, most famously, having to get up multiple times a night to urinate. Saw palmetto, an extract from the berries of a small palm tree, was marketed as the gentle, natural solution. It was thought to work by inhibiting an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, which converts testosterone to dihydrotestosterone, DHT, a hormone that fuels prostate growth. It seemed like a perfect, targeted, natural approach to shrink the prostate and relieve the symptoms without the side effects of prescription drugs. For millions of men, it became the go-to first step, a rite of passage into their 60s and 70s. But as with so many of these promising natural remedies, when saw palmetto was subjected to the highest standards of scientific testing, the beautiful theory crumbled. It wasn't just one study. It was a series of large, well-designed, placebo-controlled trials that delivered a consistent and disappointing verdict. Perhaps the most definitive was a study funded by the National Institutes of Health and published in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine. In this trial, researchers took a group of men with moderate to severe BPH symptoms and gave them either saw palmetto or an identical placebo. They started with the standard dose, and when that showed no effect, they doubled it. Still no effect. So they tripled it, giving the men a massive dose. The result? Even at 3 times the standard dose, saw palmetto was no more effective than the sugar pill at improving urinary symptoms, flow rate, or quality of life. The men taking the placebo had the exact same level of improvement as the men taking the high-dose supplement, a classic demonstration of the placebo effect in action. Other major reviews, like the Cochrane Review, which analyzes the totality of evidence, have reached the same conclusion. The evidence does not support the use of saw palmetto for BPH. The problem here isn't necessarily one of direct physical harm. Saw palmetto is generally considered safe, although it can cause mild stomach upset. The real danger is more insidious. First, there is the significant financial waste. Men can spend hundreds of dollars a year on a supplement that does absolutely nothing, money that could be spent on things that actually improve their health and well-being. Second, and more importantly, is the danger of a false sense of security and the delay of effective treatment. A man might struggle for years with worsening symptoms, thinking he's actively treating the problem with saw palmetto, when in reality, he's just treading water. This delay can lead to a significant decline in quality of life, with sleep deprivation from nighttime urination causing daytime fatigue, irritability, and even cognitive issues. In some cases, untreated BPH can progress to more serious complications like urinary tract infections, bladder stones, or even acute urinary retention, a medical emergency where you suddenly can't urinate at all. Relying on an ineffective supplement prevents men from having a crucial conversation with their doctor about treatments that actually work. I think of a patient, let's call him Michael, a 68-year-old retired salesman with a booming voice and a love for storytelling. But his stories were getting interrupted by a constant, urgent need to find a restroom. He was getting up 4 or 5 times a night, and it was wearing him down. His baseline was a man full of energy, but the sleep deprivation was stealing his vitality. A friend at his golf club, a man who swore by saw palmetto, convinced him to try it. Michael, ever the optimist, bought a large bottle, and began taking it religiously. He tracked his symptoms in a notebook, hoping to see the miracle his friend described. He took it for 6 months, then a full year. The notebook told a clear story. There was no change. Some nights were slightly better, some were worse, but the average was stubbornly, frustratingly the same. He felt like a fool, and his frustration grew. Finally, his wife convinced him to see a urologist. The urologist listened patiently, then gently explained the overwhelming scientific evidence showing saw palmetto's lack of efficacy. He then prescribed a well-studied medication, an alpha blocker, that relaxes the muscles around the prostate. Within a week, Michael was sleeping through the night for the first time in years. He also learned some behavioral strategies, like reducing evening fluid intake, that made a real difference. Today, his energy is back, but he often shakes his head at the year he lost, the money he wasted, and the frustration he endured, all because he chose a popular myth over proven medicine. The medical establishment is united on this. The official clinical practice guidelines from the American Urological Association, AUA, the leading body of prostate specialists, explicitly state that they do not recommend saw palmetto for the treatment of BPH. This isn't a controversial opinion. It's the standard of care. The era of, well, it can't hurt to try, is over, replaced by an era of evidence-based practice. The philosophical insight here is about the difference between passive hope and active management. Taking a pill, any pill, can feel like you're doing something, but if the pill is ineffective, it's an illusion of control. True control, true empowerment, comes from acknowledging the problem and seeking out solutions that have been proven to work. It means having the courage to have an open conversation with your doctor, to say, "This is affecting my life. What are my real options?" It's about valuing your quality of life, your sleep, and your well-being too much to entrust them to a remedy that has failed every rigorous test. Avoiding the saw palmetto trap isn't about giving up, it's about getting serious. It's about choosing science over folklore and effective treatment over wishful thinking. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, it tells me you're serious about taking control of your health in an intelligent way. Please take a moment to comment the number 3 below to let me know you're here and engaged in this important conversation. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future deep dives into men's health. Your support is what allows us to continue creating in-depth, no-nonsense content designed to inform and empower you. Thank you for being part of this community. Now, let's move forward to our fourth category, which is perhaps the most seductive and financially draining of them all. This brings us to number 4, the fountain of youth fallacy. I'm talking about the vast, unregulated, and aggressively marketed world of over-the-counter testosterone boosters. The appeal here is primal. Testosterone is synonymous with masculinity, strength, energy, and libido. As men age, a natural and gradual decline in testosterone is normal. But the supplement industry has weaponized this natural process, framing it as a disease called low T that must be combated at all costs. They run ads showing graying but vigorous men building fences or laughing with younger partners, attributing this vitality to their special herbal blend. These products, with names like Andromax, Testo-Rage, or Primal Fuel, promise to restore your youthful vigor, help you pack on muscle, reignite your sex drive, and melt away belly fat. For any man feeling the slightest bit slower or less energetic than he was at 30, this promise is almost impossible to resist. It seems like a direct, logical solution to a very real set of concerns. But this is where we must draw a massive, bright red line between two completely different things. Legitimate, doctor-prescribed testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, for men with a diagnosed medical condition called hypogonadism, and these over-the-counter boosters. They are not the same. TRT is a real medical treatment with real effects and real risks that must be managed by a physician. These OTC boosters, on the other hand, are a cocktail of herbs, amino acids, and minerals that promise to naturally stimulate your body's own testosterone production. The problem is, for the vast majority of these ingredients, the scientific evidence in humans is either non-existent, contradictory, or laughably weak. Ingredients like Tribulus terrestris, a cornerstone of many of these formulas, have been studied repeatedly and have shown no effect on testosterone levels in men. Others, like fenugreek or D-aspartic acid, might have very small, transient effects in some limited studies, but nothing close to the transformative results promised on the bottle, and their long-term safety is often unknown. The true danger of these products lies in their unregulated nature. The supplement industry is notoriously policed. A bottle of T-Booster can contain almost anything. First, there's the risk of contamination. Independent analyses have found heavy metals, bacteria, and other undeclared substances in these products. Second, and more alarmingly, is the risk of adulteration. Some unscrupulous companies have been caught spiking their natural herbal boosters with actual illegal anabolic steroids or prescription drugs like sildenafil, the active ingredient in Viagra, to make the user feel like the product is working. This can have devastating consequences, leading to liver damage, cardiovascular problems, and hormonal chaos. Third, even if the ingredients are as listed, some of them can have harmful effects. Certain herbs can be toxic to the liver, leading to drug-induced hepatitis. Others can interact with prescription medications or worsen underlying health conditions. For example, a man with early, undiagnosed prostate cancer could theoretically be fueling its growth by messing with his hormonal environment. You are taking a huge gamble with your health for a benefit that science says doesn't even exist. Let me share the story of a man I'll call Steve, a 59-year-old financial advisor who had always been a dedicated gym-goer. He was a man who prided himself on his discipline and strength. But he'd hit a plateau. He felt his energy waning in the afternoons, and his progress in the gym had stalled. He was in great shape for his age, but he felt the subtle creep of time. Annoyed and influenced by an online fitness guru, he ordered a popular, expensive T-Booster blend. The marketing was slick, full of testimonials and scientific-sounding jargon. He started taking the capsules, and for the first few weeks, he felt a surge of energy, likely a combination of placebo effect and the caffeine that was an undeclared part of the proprietary blend. He felt he was back on track. The process felt validating. But then, about 2 months in, a strange, deep fatigue set in, the very thing he was trying to fight. He felt nauseous and lost his appetite. A routine blood test for his life insurance policy came back with a frightening result. His liver enzymes were sky-high, indicating acute liver inflammation. His doctor was perplexed until Steve, after some prodding, sheepishly admitted to taking the online booster. They stopped it immediately, and over the next few months, his liver function slowly returned to normal. The scare was immense, and the irony was crushing. The product that promised vitality had made him genuinely ill. Today, Steve is back to his old routine, but with a newfound cynicism. He regrets not just the money, but the naive trust he placed in a slick marketing campaign over the advice of his own doctor. The medical consensus here is clear and unwavering. Endocrinologists, the hormone specialists, are united in their warnings against these products. The Endocrine Society has issued statements cautioning the public about the lack of evidence and potential dangers of these unregulated supplements. The FDA periodically issues warnings about tainted products they've discovered. The only valid way to address concerns about low testosterone is to see a doctor. This involves a conversation about your symptoms and, crucially, at least 2 separate early morning blood tests to confirm a clinically significant deficiency. Only then can a discussion about the risks and benefits of legitimate TRT begin. Anything else is just guesswork and gambling. The philosophical lesson is one of authenticity. True strength, true vitality at this age, isn't about chasing the ghost of your 25-year-old self with a magic pill. It's about having the courage to be honest with yourself and your doctor about how you're feeling. It's about embracing the man you are now and working to optimize his health with proven, safe strategies. Proper nutrition, smart exercise, stress management, and good sleep. It's about seeking health, not just chasing a number on a lab report. Avoiding the T-Booster trap is an act of self-respect. It's choosing the integrity of your own body over the empty promises of a bottle. Our journey through the supplement aisle now leads us to a mineral that we've been told is the absolute foundation of healthy aging. This brings us to number 5, the hardened artery trap. The supplement in question is high-dose calcium. The logic for taking it seems as solid as a rock. Everyone knows that as we age, especially after 50, our bones can lose density, leading to osteopenia and osteoporosis, which dramatically increases the risk of fractures. And what are bones made of? Calcium. Therefore, taking extra calcium in a pill form seems like the most direct and obvious way to keep our skeletons strong and resilient. For decades, doctors and public health messages alike have reinforced this idea, leading millions of men and women to diligently take 1,000 or 1,200 milligrams of supplemental calcium every single day. It feels responsible, like you're reinforcing the very framework of your body against the ravages of time. But this is a prime example of where a simplistic understanding of biology can lead us astray. The body is not a simple bucket you can just pour calcium into and expect it to all go to the right place. It's a highly complex system of transport and regulation. The emerging and deeply concerning science revolves around what's known as the calcium paradox. Your body needs sophisticated signaling to tell that supplemental calcium where to go. Key players in this process are other nutrients, particularly vitamin D, which helps you absorb calcium from your gut, and vitamin K2, which acts like a traffic cop, activating proteins that direct the calcium into your bones and teeth, and, crucially, keep it out of your soft tissues, like your arteries and heart valves. When you take a large, concentrated bolus of calcium from a supplement, especially without adequate K2, you can overwhelm this delicate system. Your blood levels of calcium spike, and your body scrambles to put it somewhere. Lacking the proper signals, it doesn't all end up in your skeleton. Instead, a significant portion can be deposited in the walls of your blood vessels. This process is called arterial calcification, and it is a major, direct contributor to atherosclerosis. It literally hardens your arteries, making them stiff and brittle, which increases blood pressure and is a primary risk factor for heart attacks and strokes. You take a pill to prevent a broken bone, but you may be inadvertently increasing your risk of a fatal heart attack. This isn't just a fringe theory. A growing body of research supports this concern. One major study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association looked at data from thousands of adults over a 10-year period. It found that while high calcium intake from food was associated with a lower risk of atherosclerosis, high calcium intake from supplements was associated with a significant increase in the risk of plaque buildup and coronary artery calcification. Another meta-analysis published in the British Medical Journal, which pooled data from multiple studies, found that calcium supplements were associated with about a 30% increased risk of heart attack. The risk for any single person may be modest, but it's a risk that comes with little to no proven benefit for many men. Recent, large-scale studies have shown that for healthy men not suffering from diagnosed osteoporosis, calcium supplementation does little to nothing to prevent fractures anyway. So you're taking on a very real cardiovascular risk for a skeletal benefit that likely doesn't even exist. I think of a patient named Frank, a 70-year-old retired accountant. Frank was a numbers guy, and the numbers he was told were 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day for bone health. His wife had read about it, and they started taking the chalky pills together every morning. Frank was otherwise low risk for heart disease. He had good cholesterol, normal blood pressure, and was not a smoker. He was in great health. The inciting incident was a bout of shortness of breath during his weekly golf game. His doctor, being cautious, ordered a cardiac workup, which included a coronary calcium CT scan, a test that specifically measures the amount of calcified plaque in the heart's arteries. The results were a shock to everyone. Frank's calcium score was alarmingly high, indicating significant, advanced atherosclerosis that was completely out of step with his other risk factors. His cardiologist was initially baffled. Then, during a detailed history, he asked about supplements. When Frank mentioned his daily 1,200 milligrams calcium pill, the cardiologist immediately made the connection. He explained the emerging research on supplementation and arterial calcification and told Frank to stop the pills at once and focus on getting calcium from dairy, leafy greens, and fortified foods. Frank is doing well now on medication to manage his newly discovered heart condition, but he lives with the unsettling knowledge that for years, he was diligently swallowing a pill that he thought was building his bones, but was instead hardening his arteries. The medical consensus is rapidly shifting. While no one disputes the importance of calcium, the emphasis is now on getting it from your diet. Food sources provide calcium in smaller, more manageable amounts throughout the day, and they come packaged with other nutrients that help your body use it correctly. Cardiologists, in particular, are becoming more and more vocal about the potential harms of routine, high-dose supplementation. The U.S. Preventive Services Task Force has also concluded there is insufficient evidence to recommend calcium and vitamin D supplementation for the primary prevention of fractures in most men. The philosophical insight here is profound. It's about respecting the holistic wisdom of nature over the reductionist approach of a single nutrient pill. Your body doesn't want a sudden flood of a single mineral. It wants a balanced, steady supply of a wide range of nutrients working in concert. Choosing a yogurt, a glass of milk, or a plate of steamed broccoli over a calcium tablet is an act of biological respect. It's an acknowledgement that health isn't built by hammering in one nail over and over, but by weaving a complex, strong fabric from many different threads. This is about moving from a mindset of brute force supplementation to one of intelligent, balanced nutrition. If you're finding this deep dive into what to avoid as valuable as learning what to take, please comment the word wisdom below. It helps me know that this message of thoughtful reduction is resonating with you. Your engagement keeps this channel focused on what truly matters for our health. Let's press on to our final, and perhaps most widely used, useless supplement. We've arrived at our sixth and final point, a supplement duo that represents a multi-billion-dollar industry built almost entirely on the pain and hope of those with aching joints. This is number 6, the joint pain illusion. I'm referring to the incredibly popular combination of glucosamine and chondroitin. The logic behind taking these is perhaps the most intuitive of all. Osteoarthritis, the common wear and tear arthritis that affects so many of us, is fundamentally a disease of cartilage breakdown. The smooth, slippery cartilage that cushions our joints wears thin, leading to pain, stiffness, and loss of mobility. Glucosamine and chondroitin are natural components of cartilage. They are literally the building blocks. So, the theory goes, if you swallow these building blocks in pill form, they will travel to your joints and help your body repair or even rebuild the damaged cartilage. For anyone whose knees creak when they stand up or whose hips ache after a walk, this is a deeply compelling narrative. It offers the hope of not just masking the pain, but of fixing the underlying problem naturally. It's no wonder that it became one of the best-selling dietary supplements in the world. However, this is a classic case where a simple, beautiful theory gets dismantled by complex, messy reality. When this supplement combination was put to the test in large, rigorously controlled scientific trials, the illusion shattered. The most important of these was the GATE trial, which stands for the Glucosamine/Chondroitin Arthritis Intervention Trial. This was a major, multi-center study sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, the gold standard of medical research. It enrolled nearly 1,600 people with knee osteoarthritis and compared the effects of glucosamine alone, chondroitin alone, the combination of both, a prescription anti-inflammatory drug, celecoxib, and a placebo. The primary outcome was a significant reduction in pain. The results, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, were a crushing disappointment for supplement believers. For the overall group of participants with mild to moderate pain, glucosamine and chondroitin, taken together or separately, were no more effective than the placebo. The sugar pill worked just as well. There was a small glimmer of hope in a subgroup of patients with moderate to severe pain, where the combination seemed to offer more relief. But this finding was not statistically significant and was considered preliminary, requiring further confirmation which never materialized in subsequent studies. The problems with these supplements are threefold. First, there's the biological question of whether they even reached the joint cartilage in meaningful amounts after being digested. The bioavailability is quite low, and it's unclear if enough gets to where it needs to go to have any structural effect. Second, even if it does, there's no evidence it can rebuild cartilage that has already been worn away. At best, the theory was that it might slow further breakdown, but even that has not been proven in humans. Third, and most practically, is the danger of false hope and wasted resources. People spend a fortune on these pills, often for years, believing they are treating their arthritis. This can prevent them from pursuing therapies that are actually proven to work. They might forego physical therapy, weight management, or appropriate use of pain relief because they believe the supplement is handling it. This leads to a prolonged period of unnecessary pain and a potential worsening of their condition due to inactivity, as pain prevents them from exercising, which in turn weakens the muscles that support the joint, creating a vicious cycle. I'll never forget a patient named George, a 75-year-old former mailman with knees that had carried him for tens of thousands of miles. His chronic knee pain was the bane of his existence, limiting his ability to garden or play with his grandkids. He was a stoic man, in good health otherwise, who resisted seeing doctors. For over 5 years, on the advice of a TV ad, he had been taking a daily dose of glucosamine and chondroitin. It was a significant expense for him on his fixed income, but he viewed it as a non-negotiable investment in his mobility. The process was a ritual, but the results were negligible. His pain never truly improved, but he was terrified to stop, believing things would get much worse without it. He was trapped by the marketing. The change came when he finally agreed to see a physical therapist for a different issue. The PT, a sharp young woman, asked about his knee pain and his supplements. She gently but firmly walked him through the evidence from the GATE trial and other studies, explaining why his expensive pills were likely doing nothing. Then, she did something revolutionary. She gave him a program of specific, targeted exercises to strengthen his quadriceps and hamstrings, the muscles that act as shock absorbers for the knee. George was skeptical but diligent. Within 3 months of consistent exercise, he experienced more pain relief and improved function than he had in 5 years of swallowing pills. He felt a mix of elation at his newfound mobility and a deep, simmering anger at the years and the thousands of dollars he had wasted on an illusion. The official medical recommendations reflect this reality. The American College of Rheumatology, the premier organization of arthritis specialists, has issued clinical guidelines that give a strong recommendation against the use of glucosamine and a strong recommendation against the use of chondroitin for osteoarthritis of the knee and hip. They have reviewed the totality of the evidence and concluded that it simply does not work. The philosophical takeaway here is about the power of action over passivity. True joint health for those with arthritis doesn't come from a bottle that promises to magically regrow cartilage. It comes from the active, diligent work of strengthening the structures you have. It comes from managing your weight to reduce the load on your joints. It comes from movement, smart, targeted movement that lubricates the joints and builds muscular support. Choosing to spend 20 minutes a day on physical therapy exercises instead of spending $20 on a bottle of pills is the ultimate act of taking control. It's an investment in your body's inherent capacity to support and heal itself, a far more powerful and lasting strategy than any pill could ever offer. Getting older doesn't mean entering a state of inevitable decline that must be fought with an ever-growing arsenal of pills. If anything, it's the time when our greatest strength emerges, discernment. It is the season of wisdom, where we have earned the right to question the systems, the marketing, and the conventional beliefs that are pushed upon us. There is a profound courage in choosing to do less, not out of neglect, but out of a deeper understanding. It's the courage to say no to the ineffective, the unproven, and the potentially harmful, and to say yes to the simple, foundational truths of health that have stood the test of time. At this stage of life, healthcare should be a conversation, not a conveyor belt. It should be a partnership with a doctor who sees you, the whole person, with your unique history and values, not just a set of lab numbers to be corrected. It's about shifting our focus from anxiously chasing disease with endless tests and pills to proactively honoring our health. It means being deliberate, not reactive. It means understanding that every single thing we put into our body, be it a food or a supplement, is a choice with a consequence, and we have the power to make that choice an intelligent one. I encourage you to use this information not as a rigid set of rules, but as a catalyst for conversation. Go to your doctor with your list of supplements in hand and ask the tough questions. Ask, does the evidence truly support this for someone my age with my health profile? Ask, will taking this actually change my outcome, or is it just changing a number on a piece of paper? And critically, learn to weigh the potential benefits against the burdens, not just the financial cost, but the cost in side effects, in anxiety, in false hope, and in the precious time and energy that could be directed toward things that truly bring you health and joy. You have earned the right to live on your own terms, guided by a lifetime of experience and wisdom. This is the time to be the architect of your own well-being, not a passive consumer of wellness products. It's a journey of being not reactive, but deliberate, not fearful, but informed, not a patient on an assembly line, but the respected author of your own vibrant, meaningful life.